Chapter 33. A brief visit to India. After 10 years of hard work in Europe and America, Abhedananda felt an urge within himself to visit his motherland for a short period. It was now 4 years since Vivekananda had passed, and the surging national life of India at that time particularly was looking forward to have in its midst one who was doing so much work and championing the cause of India in the same manner as Vivekananda had done. So the year 1906 was momentous in the history of Bengal, which was then experiencing a great political awakening as a result of the Swadeshi movement, following the partition of Bengal. And the cause of Bengal being India's cause, the leaders of the Indian National Congress had come forward to stand by Bengal. When the reports of Swami Abhedananda's Brooklyn lectures reached India, they created a sort of enthusiasm almost akin to that which followed the Chicago lecture of Swami Vivekananda. This perhaps was one of the reasons why there was a persistent demand from India for the return of Abhedananda, even though for a short time. It has already been stated that when Vivekananda came into America the last time in 1899, Abhedananda was particularly requested by Vivekananda to stay here at least for a period of 10 years. True to his promise, he stayed and worked for a decade without practically knowing any rest. Even his European tour during this time was full of heavy engagements. It was quite natural for him that he should feel himself tired after 10 years of continuous work, and this might be another reason for his homecoming. Moreover, Abhedananda must have been then anxious to meet his dear brother disciples at the new monastery at Belur, and to learn the various activities of a reconstituted Ramakrishna Movement and mission, of which he was appointed as one of the trustees by Vivekananda prior to his death. He was equally anxious to meet Swami Brahmananda, the new president of the Movement. And above all, he was extremely anxious to touch the dust from the lotus feet of the Holy Mother and to receive her blessings. On the other hand, his brother disciples at Belur were equally looking forward to see him once, for the news of his remarkable success as a preacher in the West had all along been a source of delight and encouragement to them. So the hero of 1,000 platforms had to come back, though for a short while, after a decade of triumphant missionary work, carrying on almost single-handed in America and Europe. The whole of India then felt immensely interested in Swami Abhedananda, and so his return to India in 1906 was hailed with the same delight as it was the case with Swami Vivekananda in 1897. There was universal jubilation at the news that Swami Abhedananda was coming back to India, and it stirred the wake of emotion everywhere. As regards his achievements in America during the first 10 years, it has been stated in the history of the Ramakrishna Movement and mission, Swami Abhedananda particularly was meeting with signal success in New York and roundabout, and the circle of his friends, admirers, and students was widening every day, till he became recognized as a noted preacher, philosopher, and writer. By 1901, the lectures of Swami Abhedananda became so popular that the audience rose to 600 at times. In addition, there were classes on Raja Yoga and other subjects. And from 1902 onwards, he also began to pay occasional visits to England and the continent. Besides, he opened classes for children in which work he has helped for a time by Swami Turiyananda. In addition, the number of his books went on multiplying, the work having thus increased and opportunities for further expansion having opened up. The authorities at Belur sent as his assistant Swami Nirmalananda, who reached New York in November 1903. In January 1906, a Vedanta center was opened at Brooklyn. In May of that year, Swami Abhedananda left for a sojourn in India. His return to India was an occasion for great public rejoicing and enthusiasm for Vedanta. It was on May the 16th, 1906, that Swami Abhedananda sailed from New York to England and thence by the P&O steamer, the SS Multan, for Colombo in Ceylon, where he landed on June 16th, 1906. The feeling of profound gratitude out of the hearts of the many to whom he brought new light and peace found appropriate expression in the farewell address presented to him by the Vedanta Society on the eve of his departure from New York. The Maharaja and the Maharani of Baroda were present when the farewell address was presented to him. Below, we give some relevant excerpts from this address. For 9 years you have labored tirelessly among us, enduring hardship and opposition, even enmity, yet pushing on your course undaunted and unchecked. When you came to New York, out of all those who had gathered so eagerly around Swami Vivekananda, you found scarcely a handful of earnest students. With these you began your labor. True to your sannyasin spirit in the heart of this commercial metropolis, asking aid of no one, and with the infinite wisdom, patience, courage, and tenacity which have characterized your efforts at every step, you began to build stone by stone the solid structure of the Vedanta Society as it stands today. Only those who knew the conditions of New York can appreciate how great have been the difficulties and how noble is your achievement. You have been to us an ever-wise and ever-loving master and teacher. Many of us who came to you ill in body and mind are today strong in limb and full of new life. Not one had come to you in vain. Everywhere you have brought hope, gladness, strength, and spiritual light. Never can we pay the mighty debt we owe to you. 2 days after this farewell function, Abhedananda left New York. In his absence, the work there was left to the charge of Swami Abhedananda, who had then arrived from India. A month later, he set his foot in a neighboring country, Ceylon, which is the future Sri Lanka, where a royal reception awaited him. To what extent the enthusiasm on the return of Swami Abhedananda to India after a decade's stay in Europe and America had been then created throughout India was indicated by numerous receptions that were then freely accorded to him from Colombo to Bombay. To begin with, great excitement prevailed in the city of Colombo where his coming was made known. Placards announcing it were to be seen in the streets and lanes and other public places. Everyone was joyously awaiting the arrival of the Swami. From the contemporary records, it can be gathered that the people of Colombo were ready with a grand preparation befitting a king to receive Swami Abhedananda, who had conquered the soul of America. Even the excitement was so keen at the headquarters of the Ramakrishna Movement mission that Swami Brahmananda thought that there should be present some representatives of the mission to receive Abhedananda, and accordingly directives were sent to Swami Ramakrishna Ananda, Swami Paramahansa, and the youngest disciple of Vivekananda, both of whom were then in Madras, to proceed to Colombo. Abhedananda, however, was not aware of this, and therefore his surprise knew no bounds when he found one of his brother disciples on board the ship. "My dear Kali, what a great preacher you are now." With these words, Swami Ramakrishna Ananda embraced Abhedananda with his outstretched hands. "Glory to the Master. It is all due to his grace, Sashi." That is Ramakrishna Ananda, was Abhedananda's reply. Then he was garlanded by the president of the reception committee, and the first person to welcome him as he stepped on land was the reputed Buddhist Anagarika Dharmapal, who was a fellow delegate with Swami Vivekananda in Chicago Parliament of Religions. Years before, Colombo had the privilege of witnessing similar reception when Vivekananda returned. This time again, it fell to the lot of the Hindu residents of Colombo to extend similar reception to Swami Abhedananda, who was presented with an address of welcome, which incidentally mentioned the name of Swami Vivekananda and this must have touched the heart of Abhedananda to such an extent that in the course of his reply he said with subdued emotion, as was his characteristic, "One thing I noticed in the address you have mentioned the late Swami Vivekananda, who is not dead but is living. He is here with us all. He is in you and in me. He is not in the body physical in which we have seen him. He is spiritual and invisible before us. He is more powerful now, 1,000 times than that he was in the body. It was he who first called me to England 10 years ago, and I worked in London for a year, and the next year I was invited to New York. I went there and worked continuously for 9 more years. Nobody can appreciate what Swami Vivekananda had done for the good of humanity." On the 18th of June, Abhedananda was received by the members of the Vivekananda Society, where he gave a short speech. Here he was delighted to meet Ananda Kentish Kumaram Swami, who later on became the greatest exponent of Indian arts and crafts. During his stay in Colombo, Abhedananda visited some of the temples of Colombo, at each of which he was formally received by the priests of the temple and by a large crowd of enthusiastic devotees. While at Ceylon, he visited Kandy, Jaflua, and Anuradhapura. Everywhere he was given an address of welcome, when in every place he had to give suitable replies. He left Ceylon for India on 28th June, accompanied by Swami Ramakrishna Ananda, Swami Paramahansa. He first arrived in the port of Tuticorin, where a hearty reception was accorded to him in the Cosmopolitan Club, where 4,000 people had assembled. Here his lecture, which was first delivered in English and then translated into Tamil, was highly appreciated. To commemorate his presence in Tuticorin, a society under the name of the Vivekananda Society was founded. Next, he came to Tinnevelly, where he also was presented with an address of welcome. And on 4th July, the party arrived at Madras. A very warm reception was given to Swami Abhedananda, and a lecture was delivered by him on Vedanta, the universal religion. Many questions about Vedanta work in America were asked, and the Swami answers were most convincing. So followed his triumphant tour to other places of South India. Inquisitive and complete information about this tour may be gathered from the lectures in Swami Abhedananda's book about India. The book is called Lectures and Addresses of Swami Abhedananda in India. Everywhere it was the same story, warm reception and high enthusiasm, which were almost reminiscent of those days when Swami Vivekananda returned to India after 4 years preaching in the West. Everywhere he received address of welcome, and every place he made suitable replies, sometimes also giving lectures which were mostly attended by a large number of intellectuals. To what extent since his arrival in India his lectures had aroused a keen interest was beautifully expressed in the welcome address presented to Swami Abhedananda at Mysore, where he visited on the first week of August. Among other things, the address said, "The learned and highly inspiring lectures which you have been delivering ever since your return to the mother country have done more than a library of books on Vedantic literature can ever do, in arousing in the young minds of the rising generation a real and keen interest to seek after the truth and know it." A notable feature of his reception at Mysore was this, that a reputed Hindu scholar of the Mysore Sanskrit College wrote a beautiful Sanskrit verse in honor of him. It was in Mysore that Swami Abhedananda said in one of his lectures, "I look upon India as the Punya Bhumi, For it is here that the eternal truth of Vedanta rose, like a torrid sun, to dispel spiritual ignorance and darkness all over the world. Swami Vivekananda carried the torchlight of Vedanta from India to America and Europe, and we shall encircle the whole globe with the light of this eternal truth. We might mention here an incident that happened in Mysore. The local Christian missionaries were not at all pleased with all these affairs of ovation and reception accorded to the Swami, and they made some adverse and uncharitable remarks in their magazine called The Harvest Field. And the Mysore Herald on August 9th came out with a stray editorial in course of which it wrote, "Our contemporary says Swami Abhedananda has been received from Tuticorin to Madras with garlands, addresses, and triumphal processions. In color, in noise, and in magnitude, nothing has been wanting. What sincerity and abiding strength lies under this outward show? We assure our contemporary that it is real sincerity and regard that have found expression in demonstration of such reverence." While in Mysore, Abhedananda visited Sringeri Muth, established by Shankaracharya. The most memorable lecture which he delivered during his visit to Mysore was the one which the Swami gave before the students, and what he said on that occasion still holds good. Here are some of the excellent advices which he gave to the students, and which the students of our time can well emulate. Abhedananda said, "Morality is at the very foundation of your character. If you want to attain the highest ideals of life, then first follow the principles of the moral law. Try to realize the purpose of life by means of viveka, or discrimination, between the eternal and the non-eternal. You must be pure in heart. Obedience is a great virtue. It is a virtue very much wanted just now in India. This is a national asset and a national characteristic. Without it, each one is selfish, and a selfish man is no more a helper in national life. Unselfishness means an eye for the welfare of our fellows, sympathy for our neighbors, and friendliness to all creatures. Practice humanitarianism. Extend your love, charity, and sympathy to your fallen brethren, and make them like yourself. Love God by loving all creatures. This is true religion. Be fearless in all the walks of your life. Fearlessness is very much desired today in our young men for the upbuilding of the Indian nation." Another interesting episode should be mentioned here just to indicate that Abhedananda was equally loved and respected even by the Mohammedans. A Malavi Darvish of Mysore was so much fascinated with his teachings that at a meeting held in the honor of the Swami, he openly declared, "Swami Abhedananda is an extraordinary being. His wonderful intellectual gifts and his brilliant powers of expression of the highest truths in their most simple form speak for themselves." Incidentally, it should be mentioned here that the presence of Abhedananda at Bangalore after his visit to Mysore enabled the Ramakrishna Mission to build a large mission house there and make it the center of an elaborate scheme of religious and charitable work in Mysore. From Bangalore, Swami Abhedananda, accompanied by Swami Ramakrishna Ananda and Swami Paramahansa, proceeded to Puri en route to Madras, covering a distance of 1,100 miles. At several stations, people came in large numbers to have a glimpse of Abhedananda. They brought fruits, flowers, and other offerings as their token of love and veneration for the great preacher. Swami Brahmananda, the president of the Ramakrishna Mission, along with other members of the order, was then staying at Puri. He came to the railway station accompanied by the Swamis of the Brotherhood to receive Swami Abhedananda. It was a sight never to be forgotten. A week of complete rest and retirement at Puri came as a delightful break after the 10 weeks arduous work and journey from Calcutta. It has been stated in the book Lectures and Addresses that a group of disciples of Sri Ramakrishna met there and lived as they had done in the early years of their monastic life, just after their blessed master had left them. This reunion was a truly happy one for Swami Abhedananda. The Bengali residents of Puri took the opportunity of Abhedananda's visit, and they presented him with an address of welcome on September 7th at the local school premises. It was on the night of the following day that the party left for Calcutta. In fact, this was the real homecoming of Swami Abhedananda. As the train arrived at the Howrah station on the morning of 9th September, they found an enthusiastic crowd of about 1,000 people, headed by Narendra Nath Sen, the editor of the Indian Mirror, and Jatindra Nath Roy Choudhury of Taki, waiting to welcome them. Abhedananda stayed for a week in Calcutta as the guest of the Justice Sharada Sharan Mitra to fulfill his engagements in the city, which included his grand reception at the town hall on the 12th September. It was one of the memorable gatherings in the history of the town hall, which has witnessed many historical assemblages. It was his formal reception by the city of his birth, and it was not only a large but also thoroughly representative meeting. Babu Narendra Nath Sen was of the chair. In the course of his address, he referred to the manifold activities of the Swami and remarked that he has been a fit successor to the late Swami Vivekananda, is amply satisfied by the invaluable services which he has rendered to the cause of Hinduism. Swami Abhedananda is a true sannyasin, and he is known in New York as the man who works for nothing. He has built up that great organization, the Vedanta Society of New York. After the president's lecture was over, the address was welcome, brightly illuminating on country-made silk, hearing a beautiful gold border and fringe was presented to Abhedananda, who gave a suitable reply, speaking for more than an hour. It was in the course of this lecture that, paying his tribute to the memory of Vivekananda, he declared before the vast audience in an unfaltering tone, Swami Vivekananda was not an ordinary man. He was the patriot saint of modern India. He may be called an incarnation of divine wisdom in this age of commercialism. It was he who turned the table of commercialism in a foreign land like America. He was the pioneer, the first preacher, the first Hindu sannyasin who went to the United States, carrying his master's message and the gospel of truth as taught by our ancient rishis. Vivekananda represented the Vedic religion, the Sanatana Dharma, which we may call a universal religion. He achieved great success because he preached nothing but the eternal truth. This esteemed tribute paid to the memory of his leader indicate that Swami Abhedananda was particularly keen in reviving and projecting the glory that was Vivekananda, just in the same manner as Sister Nivedita had done earlier. By acknowledging him as a pioneer and preacher of this age, Abhedananda had in his mind to impress on the minds of his countrymen the historical significance of this patriot saint of India. This also reflects his implicit allegiance to his beloved leader. In his reply to the town hall address, Swami Abhedananda also dwelt on the various aspects of the work that had been done in America by the preachers belonging to the order of Sri Ramakrishna. In fact, this was one of the finest speeches that he delivered during his short visit to India. A summary of this memorable lecture appeared in almost all the dailies of Calcutta. Abhedananda delivered another lecture on the following day, which was chiefly intended for the young men of Calcutta. It should be noted that ever since he set foot on the soils of India, His attention was always directed to the rising generation, where life he wanted to mold and which was one of the most cherished dreams of Vivekananda. What he felt in his heart was the state of denationalization and demoralization amongst the young men who seemed to have lost their moorings. The essence of his advice to the young men of Calcutta was almost the same as spoken to the students of Bangalore. Swami Abhedananda spent 5 days quietly at Belur Muth in the company of his brother disciples. And while there, he did not forget to make a pilgrimage to Dakshineswar, where he had his first meeting with his master and his subsequent initiation under him. The memories of those bygone days must have swelled in his heart as he entered the temple of Bhavatarini, the deity worshipped by Sri Ramakrishna, that is Kali. The holy place remained a part and parcel of his spiritual existence. During his short stay at the Muth, the Swami revised the constitution of the Ramakrishna Mission, which was then not registered, and proposed in a meeting of the trustees that Swami Brahmananda should remain the lifelong president of the mission. And this motion was accepted unanimously. And on the 23rd of September, Abhedananda went to Chandanagar to deliver a lecture on the occasion of the anniversary of the Sat Samiti, which was later known as the Pravartak Sangha. The French mayor presided. The speech was full of sparks, so remarked Madalal Roy, who went to Belur to fetch Abhedananda on behalf of the Sat Samiti. The following lines taken from the speech indicate, "Let us stand up and cultivate the truth that we are the Atman, the Self, birthless and deathless, and therefore we must be fearless and brave, and let anything that stands in way of realizing our highest ideal be removed. It is necessary today that we should train young men to be spiritual teachers. Spiritual teachers are those who have sacrificed all their self-interest upon the altar of humanity. Today we need more sannyasins who will be ready to give up everything, to give up their body if necessary for the good of others." This was the summum bonum of Abhedananda's advice to the young generation of India during the first decade of the 20th century. Each and every word that fell from his lips during his short visit to India seemed to remind everyone who heard of Swami Vivekananda. The educated class of India noticed the same fire and glow in every utterance of the spiritual brother. It was surcharged all through with the same warmth of heart and the same feeling. And this perhaps was one of the reasons why Abhedananda, on his return to India, was so enthusiastically received by the people all over India. It was not for nothing that Swami Brahmananda had told Swami Abhedananda, "Kali, it is all the play of the master. When Naren, that is Vivekananda, left us, we thought that our work in the West will suffer a setback. But your wholehearted performance has convinced us that Naren is very much alive in you." Could any befitting compliment be paid than this, and this from no other than Swami Brahmananda, the magnificent pillar of the Ramakrishna order? It was the season of autumn in Bengal when he was staying at Belur, where the Durga Puja festival, which was initiated by Vivekananda, was duly performed, and Swami Abhedananda participated in it. After the ceremony was over, he was invited one day at the Oriental Seminary to deliver a lecture. He had his schooling in this institution. He was also accorded a reception by the people of his birthplace, Ahiratola. His stay in Calcutta came to an end on 5th October, when Swami Abhedananda, accompanied by Swami Paramahansa and Amulya Brahmachari, left for Patna, where on the following evening he delivered a lecture in the town hall. Varanasi had become by this time one of the chief centers of the mission, and so Abhedananda visited the holy city on the next stage of his journey from Patna. He was delighted to see that through the active efforts of Swami Shivananda, the Ramakrishna Sevashram, the home of service, with its school for boys, was doing excellent work at Varanasi. Service to humanity was one of the cherished dreams of Vivekananda, and we can well imagine his satisfaction at the mission's activity while at Benares. He did not miss a visit to Sarnath, where exist the relics of the Rig Veda and the ancient relics of the Buddhist stupa. The rest of his journey included such places as Allahabad, Agra, and Bombay. Everywhere he was received with great enthusiasm, followed by addresses of welcome, and everywhere he made suitable speeches in which he discussed not only religion, but also some of the burning topics of the day. From the first day of his landing in India to the last phase of his journey, it was indeed a triumphal tone which was reminiscent of the days of Swami Vivekananda as he toured northern India in his return in 1897. So in the course of less than a decade, India had the privilege of witnessing the spectacular tour of two of the greatest sannyasins of the Ramakrishna order, Vivekananda and Abhedananda. On November 10th, Swami Abhedananda, accompanied by Swami Paramahansa, sailed for London on the SS Marmora. Thus, during his brief stay in India, Abhedananda was able to create a new wave of enthusiasm amongst her people, which was then very badly needed. He was successful in infusing new life and new hope, which India was then lacking, following the sudden passing away of Swami Vivekananda. At this distance of time, when we look at the events of those 6 months, we might regard the homecoming of Swami Abhedananda as a great event in the history of modern India. For all India rose to do him honor, and with him came a reinvigoration of the whole Indian spirit. They even ran only stand comparison to the one that happened in 1897. From all accounts available to us, we find that Abhedananda's coming was awaited in the same manner as was Vivekananda. Evidently, new forces of history were at play. The manner in which Abhedananda was received in India and the numerous lectures delivered by him during those 6 months at different places bear ample testimony to it. The whole of India rose to pay homage to him. It is impossible to describe in detail the story of those 6 months, which is nothing but an account of ovations and receptions, processions and addresses of welcome, and Abhedananda's replies and lectures. From the dusty pages of the newspapers, one can gather that the eyes were on Abhedananda in India. He was like a conqueror returning from the battlefield, crowned with glory, and not a conqueror of earthly dominions, but a conqueror of hearts, not only in the contemplative East, but in the materialistic West. But ovations, processions, and garlanding meant nothing to Abhedananda. His mind was, as we can well imagine, fully absorbed with the future of India. In the light of his Western experiences, he wanted the rising generation of India to become strong in character and mind, so that the future of India might be built up on solid foundation, just as desired by Swami Vivekananda. A close analysis of his lectures and addresses in India during those 6 months will convince anybody that they created a profound impression on the minds of the younger people, on whom Abhedananda counted on just as much. As we have already indicated that India at that particular period was passing through a period of national regeneration, a change was coming on which the growing tension was happening. A new spirit of self-reliance had then began to gain ground. In short, the year 1906 was a landmark in Indian history in all respects. And it was quite in the fitness of the time that Swami Abhedananda returned to India, though for a short period, to provide her with an impetus and a new outlook which needed his appeal to the younger generation to emulate national ways and national ideals and to cultivate national virtues was not in vain. And to what extent this spirit permeated the entire nation has been proved by the subsequent history of India. Thus, the high priest of monism proved himself to be a great leader of the nation.